Good evening. My name is Dr. Betty Tonzi, and I'm on the board of the Hancock County League of Women Voters. And we're very happy that you can join us. We are live right now. In fact, I happen to be in the newsroom of the Greenfield Daily Reporter, and we have our candidates with us and a couple of other board members. We want to keep with the tradition of what we've been doing now for several years, and that is hosting forums for the public for contested seats in our particular area. And of course, COVID, which has been with us now since March, has prevented us from doing that live. And Zoom, I think the expression and idea whose time had come, been around for a while, but people were not really using it. But it has been an absolute blessing for so many people to continue getting together and do things. And we're thrilled. We are recording this right now. And as soon as this forum is through, I will download the recording and I will be sending it to the Daily Reporter so they can broadcast it out to their readership. The library would like to have a copy so they can broadcast it out. We're open to other mediums, and we'll also be putting it on our Hancock County League of Women Voters Facebook page. And that will happen starting tonight and into tomorrow. So we're really pleased to continue this tradition. This is a tradition of the United States League of Women Voters for over 100 years. We started right before the vote. And people might ask, well, you got the vote within a few months after starting. Why? What is the purpose of the league thereafter? Well, once we got the vote, the most important thing, I think, as many of you know, which is why we do these forums, it's important to be informed. It's important for the public to be informed. Now, both of the candidates, of course, represent parties, and the party does an awful lot for its candidates to give views, but this is a really ideal way for the candidates to face off with each other and be asked questions by you, the public, and to be able to answer it. And we like the idea of a forum, not a debate, because we are a friendly county here, and we are neighbors, and we want to be neighbors when we're all done. And these are views. We want to hear the views. We're not interested in fisticuffs. We really just want to hear views. And I want to say that in addition to myself, my name is Betty Tonzi. I'm on the board of the Hancock County League of Women Voters. Linda Dunn is the president of our league. And if you'll hold up your timer, Linda, so we can see what you're going to do. She is going to be our timer for this evening to give the candidates an idea. And then Donna, who you're going to see once in a while peek from behind her phone. We are recording this by Zoom. However, there must be a backup plan always, and she's going to be recording this also on her phone. This is what we normally do in the past. Now, the candidates this evening I'm going to introduce. We have Senator Mike Crater, and this is for the Indiana State Senate seat, District 28, which he currently serves as a Republican. And the candidate for the Democrats running for that seat is Teresa Bruno.
Hello.
So welcome, Senator Crater. Welcome, Ms. Bruno. Thank you so much for coming this evening and for joining us.
Thank you.
The candidate, we did a little guess of a number to see who is going to open this evening. Each of them will have 2 minutes to say whatever they'd like, why they're running, most likely, and then they'll have 2 minutes to close at the very end for any kind of wrap up. There'll be no rebuttal throughout this forum. The 2-minute wrap up at the end will be the rebuttal. There were several questions that were offered. At least there were many questions. We got questions from many of you. I want to thank you for those questions. We are going to be just a little over an hour, not quite 90 minutes. But we had a lot of questions, and we wanted to give as many of them an opportunity because, again, this is for the public. So they will have up to 75 seconds to answer a question. We only ask questions ever that both candidates can answer because that's the fairest way to do a forum. And again, we only do contested seats. And with that, I believe we will start. And with that toss of the proverbial coin, Ms. Bruno, I believe, collected the heads of the tails. She collected the right number. So would you please, 2 minutes, tell us how you'd like to start, perhaps why you're running.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Bruno, and I am a mom to 2 beautiful boys, 9 and 11. I'm an educator. I teach at Ivy Tech Community College. I'm a leader. I'm on the board for the town of Warren Park that is in Marion County. I'm also a brain aneurysm survivor. Now, a lot of politicians like to say that they're bipartisan. Well, I actually live it in, my second job as, a Warren Park Town Councilor. I was the first Democrat to be elected in 2015 to the board for the town of Warren Park. So I work with all Republicans. And so to get anything done, I have to form coalitions with them and work well with them. It also helps that I bake delicious cookies. So they're always willing to talk to me. And the other thing that I also have to do is work with the city county councilors here in Indianapolis, because some of our roads are maintained by the city of Indianapolis. So I work with Republicans, I work with our fellow city county councilors, I build broad coalitions. I'm seen as a leader in my community. A lot of people confide in me, a lot of people, and I've talked to many people over the years, and I've noticed that Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter what you are, we all are concerned about a lot of the same things. We want, good quality public schools. We want to be able to drive on low roads that aren't falling apart. We want access to good jobs, good paying jobs. And we also want access to affordable health care. And so that is like my platform that I'm running on, but what my neighbors have basically said that they need. And the other thing that, I think this district needs and they want is just someone with passion, someone with vision, someone who will get up every day and fight for them and will be their champion. And I will be Senate District 28's champion. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kreider.
Thank you, and thank you, Betty, and the others at the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Mike Kreider. I have been elected to this seat for the last 8 years, been an honor to serve. I am a retired DNR officer. I spent 30 years in that career and rose to the top of that state agency. And after I retired, I worked at the hospital there in Greenfield for about 6 years. And during that time, I was exposed to a lot of the issues that affect people in a really deep and personal way. Things like sexual assault, mental health challenges, suicide, other things that really needed somebody to take a hold of and work on. It's been my honor the last 8 years to really dig into those issues, and we've made significant progress. However, the work is not even close to done. We've got a lot of work left to do, and the success that I've enjoyed has been bipartisan success. Certainly everybody that has any connection with these challenges knows the deep personal impacts that they have on the individual, but also how these challenges affect the families. And so I look forward to serving District 28 for another term. And during that time, I'm going to continue the hard work that I've done. Look forward to this forum and explaining a little bit more about the things that I have worked on and the things that I plan to continue working on. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our first question will go again by a call of the proverbial coin. We'll go to Ms. Bruno. And the question is about apportionment. Senate District 28 is one of the most gerrymandered districts in Indiana. Currently, 45% of Indiana's population identifies as Democrat, but less than 30% of the legislature is. Lawmakers get to choose their voters instead of voters choosing their lawmakers. Will you support maps and a transparent process to prevent gerrymandering that allows incumbents to keep themselves or their party in power? Why or why not? And I'm happy to repeat any questions at all throughout the evening.
All right. Well, actually, redistricting reform was one of the first things that I took up because I noticed that we moved to our house in, I think, 2013, and I noticed that our state senator was out in Greenfield, and I'm like, we live on the east side of Indianapolis. That makes no sense. So I am for an independent redistricting reform commission. I do not believe that politicians should be choosing their constituents. I am very much in favor of the way Arizona does it. Arizona has a system where they have a group of citizens that come together and they go around the state and They basically, you know, find out what are the communities of interest. I don't really think of people as Democrat, Republicans. I just think of people as communities of interest. Okay, so, and then they put those communities of interest together to make sure that they are fairly, you know, represented. Because see, if you really look at our district, we kind of have like 3 communities of interest here. We have the east side of Indianapolis, we have rural Hancock County, and then we have an emerging suburban county, suburban portion. And that can be very, very hard to represent. Now
I think your time is up, Ms. Bruno.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll try to keep an eye on the timer too. I realize when you get caught up with the answering.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did decide not to have the beep, 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 because it's annoying. I mean, if you'd like to have us put it on, we can see, but I will do a good job of keeping on time with that too. Senator Kreider, do I need to repeat
Thank you. No, I don't need you to repeat the question. Thank you. That is going to be a challenge answering in that time period. And so I ran in 2012. The district was as it is now. Certainly had nothing to do with the construct of the district or the design of the district. I was simply told this is the district that you will represent if you're successful and you decide whether you're going to run or not. Representing a district as diverse as District 28 is a bit challenging. It stretches me as a legislator and makes me dig into issues I probably wouldn't have thought a whole lot about otherwise. Certainly the folks in Marion County are more interested in things like mass transit and some of the other issues than folks in Hancock County are. However, as far as the design of the next redistricting, I think I will support whatever issue makes it through the legislative process. I think the issues I work on are not partisan at all. And the folks that I represent hopefully will see the value of the work they do, whether Republican or Democrat.
Okay, thank you, Senator Kreider. The next question you will start out with, and it's on the environment. Indiana is a right to farm state. Recently, a lawsuit was brought by a plaintiff, a homeowner, contesting the defendant's, who is a farmer, the right to change from crop production to a confined feeding operation. The plaintiff or the homeowner lost. What changes to the right to farm legislation is needed to ensure that intended consequences are addressed and all property owners' rights are protected? Senator Kreider?
Thank you. You may not realize that we also, a couple of sessions ago, had a bill that would have created a constitutional right to farm, something that I was concerned about. And I actually worked hard against that bill, testified against it, and helped it be defeated. I hate situations where individuals are pitted against each other for environmental reasons or just nuisance reasons. And oftentimes, confined feeding operation might have smells and things that people don't necessarily like. I haven't really looked at the right to farm bill that we currently have in statute. However, I will tell you that I'm a person that's pretty conservative as far as the environment, having spent the last 30 years of my life, or the initial job that I had was as an Indiana conservation officer, where I worked a lot on environmental issues. And so I honestly can't tell you what needs to be changed. I don't know, based on the fact pattern you set forth, what we might change that would provide better protections for that landowner. We also have to make sure that we protect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stop you. Ms. Bruno.
Yes, it's going to be hard to keep into that time. Yes, so from what I understand in that lawsuit, the plaintiff has been on that land his family's been on that land for 4 years. And I recently learned that concentrated animal feeding operations, we don't really have any state regulations regarding that. Because, obviously when you get a lot of, pigs together or chickens together, I mean, yeah, they're going to be bound to smell, but you know, everyone's going to think, oh, liberal, she's going to want to smack regulations on everything. But sometimes I think there needs to be some sort of regulations. So then that way, you know, if the two property owners can't work it out, we need to figure out a legislative solution, because that gentleman has, and his family has been on the farm for generations. So there needs to be a legislative solution that can respect both of their rights.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bruno, you'll start with the next question, which is on healthcare.
Okay.
If the Supreme Court strikes down the remaining provisions of the Affordable Care Act, that health protections, such as pre-existing conditions, children until age 26 remaining on parents' policies and such could end. How will Indiana ensure those who receive insurance through the exchanges continue to be insured? Will the Healthy Indiana Plan and the CHIP program continue? And who will pay? Ms. Bruno.
That is a very good question. And I am incredibly worried about that. I am a ruptured brain aneurysm survivor, and I'm on the campaign trail all the time. And I hear about that every day. And our Healthy Indiana Plan, HIP 2.0, is funded by the Affordable Care Act. And if it goes away, the federal money goes away, I honestly don't know where we're going to get this money. And I know one of the things, though, I do want to do when I'm in the state Senate is I want, even though currently people with pre-existing conditions are protected on the federal level, I want to make sure they're protected on the state level. And I am looking into affordable solutions to make sure that we can expand access to healthcare coverage. So, and I'm happy, again, I feel like I'm really rushing through this. So if anyone wants to contact me after this, and I can go into a lot more detail.
Thank you. Senator Kreider.
So I serve on the Health Committee in the Senate, and we have a lot of discussions around HIP 2.0. It's my understanding, even at the federal level, there's no desire to essentially eliminate all of the protections that exist under the Affordable Care Act. But we have to be honest, the Affordable Care Act is in some ways the Unaffordable Care Act, and a lot of individuals cannot access the care that they need. One of the areas I work in constantly is mental health, and we've got a huge lack in services around mental health. One of the reasons I focus so much of my attention around insurance and insurance providers and trying to make sure that there's parity in that discussion is to try to provide more coverage for more individuals in more ways than currently exist. I will always fight for protections for pre-existing conditions, and as I mentioned before, any other vulnerable populations that might exist.
Okay, thank you. And you'll get the next question. In the case of sexual assault, this is on women's health. In the case of sexual assault, what approaches would you support to assist the victim, such as having DNA kits available and funding to test the DNA kits, counseling, and other services? Senator Kreider.
Thank you. This is an area I've worked in most of my legislative career. And this next session, I'm planning a bill that will work along with RAINN, which is a national organization, to try to provide a mechanism for more sane nurses, sexual assault nurse examiners. Those nurses will have the training that's necessary to compassionately collect the kits. They understand the forensics and the chain of custody that's necessary in order for those kits to be used as evidence. I also worked 2 sessions ago to create a tracking system so that the victims of sexual assault can understand better what's happening with their individual kit. And so look me up, Jenny's Law, the sexual assault kit audit, statewide audit that was done. All of those things were because of my efforts, and it's an area I will continue to focus on. Crimes against children, it's a huge issue in this state.
Ms. Bruno?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree, right, that we need to do more for sexual assault victims. And, you read in the paper how there's always backlogs of, processing the rape kits. And I don't understand how that can possibly be. I mean, obviously we need to give law enforcement all the resources that they need to solve these cases. And we also need to, make sure that the victims get the counseling that they deserve. Again, mental health is, another big thing that I'm very for. And so yeah, just make sure that we catch the bad guys, and also support the women and as they, recover.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno, this is a question on education. During the pandemic, teachers have had an increase in their workload as they prepare both in-person and virtual lessons. Do you support teachers receiving a pandemic bonus? Why or why not?
Absolutely. I'm an educator myself. I only teach part-time at Ivy Tech, and I was teaching online, and I just teach online right now since my kids are younger. But, I've substitute taught before, and then my eyes, so as an educator, my eyes were really wide open, as, my kids, in March came home, and they were learning, virtually, and it just seemed like it was almost harder for the teachers to do that. And then now my kids are back in school, and some of the students are learning virtually, and some of the students are learning in the classroom. So that they're doing twice as much, and they absolutely deserve a bonus.
Thank you. Senator Kreider.
So I watched my granddaughter do her online lessons the other day, and anybody that thinks that teachers are not working much, much harder than they ever have is just not paying attention. Certainly, anything we can do to provide teacher incentive grants or other grant programs in this challenging environment, I'm sure will be considered. This is an area that's received much discussion. There's currently study being done to look at what's possible for the state. But what we're talking about is a lot of money when you look at each school system and try to determine how to do that effectively, kind of outside of the bargaining that takes place on an annual basis. And so we need to continue to listen to schools and to administrators and try to determine what the best way is to do that.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kreider, this was on economic development. Many local businesses are struggling in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. What state financial assistance or other actions would you support in the coming months to aid economic recovery?
Thank you. The CARES Act money has not all been expended yet, and we certainly need to look at that federal money. We also have probably not expended the resources at IEDC, and we need to continue to focus on that. However, I think, locally, at least in Hancock County, the work that's being done with the economic development, attracting new businesses to the area, some of those jobs are not going to come back. And we know that in some cases, the small businessman has been impacted really in a way that it's hard to recover from. And so we need to continue to focus on that. I work closely with the state chamber and also the Indy chamber, as well as our local chambers, and we'll do what we can to incentivize programs that really make sense and help those businesses recover.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno.
Yes, I've been talking to a lot of small business owners on the campaign trail, and they are really hurting. And I think one of the best things that we can do is try to get this pandemic under control first. So make sure everybody, you wear your face masks. I know they're not the most comfortable, but when you're out and about, please wear it. The other thing is, again, the CARES Act, we still have money from the CARES Act. I really wish that Holcomb would actually call a special session. I've been thinking about that for a while now, and that way get the legislators' input on how to spend, the CARES Act's money, and to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to keep these small businesses afloat.
Okay, thank you. You'll get the next question. George Floyd's death in May led to a summer of strife, and Indiana was no exception. As Hoosiers, we like to pride ourselves on Hoosier hospitality, yet many do not feel welcome. How do we seek authentic and sustainable actions that embrace diversity as strength?
Well, I mean, yeah, we are, as a Hoosier state, we are, very welcoming, and diversity is our strength. And I'm not quite sure what the question's really asking, but I remember, going downtown after George Floyd's death, and I remember going to a prayer vigil, and we were all wearing our face masks, and we're 6 feet apart, and just, praying together, and just coming together. And I think, the other thing is just listening to our, our African-American friends, and our, the people of color, just listening to them and, making them feel heard. I think that's it. So basically just praying together and making people feel heard and listened to. And yeah.
Senator Kreider?
So this is a topic that's important to me. If you look at my family picture, you'll notice several persons of color, including 2 of my grandchildren that were adopted. I have personally been meeting with African-American ministers from Marion County, meeting with law enforcement, meeting with other groups, trying to determine what the best path forward is to avoid a similar situation. You said we didn't maybe realize some of the strife that other areas did, but downtown Indianapolis was barely impacted, and several businesses are impacted to the point some of them will not recover. One law firm told me they had $300,000 worth of glass breakage at their business. And so we need to do what we can to have empathy, to listen compassionately and understand the challenges that folks have, because perception is reality. And there's no way that I can sit here and say that I understand all the challenges that we need to address. However, I'm part of a conversation, and I intend to stay engaged in that conversation.
Thank you. And you'll get the next question. This one is now on the environment. Again, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, or IDEM, staff has declined by nearly 1/5 on a per capita basis between 2008 and 2018. Given that people who are exposed to air pollutants like particulates are more vulnerable to COVID, would you, in spite of the challenging budget ahead, actively speak up on the Senate floor and in Senate committee for protecting the IDEM budget for the sake of public health?
Well, I can say that I've spoken up in the past, and I will continue to speak up. As a former administrator in state government, I understand the challenges of trying to make a budget work when your budget's cut by 15, 20, or 30%. I had to live through that during my years as an administrator. The thing that is left as an option to you is really cutting staff, because that's the bulk of your budget that's expended. And so we need to do what we can to protect not just IDEM or not just DNR, but all the other state employees that are impacted by these cuts, and have the hard, necessary discussions as to how we're going to pass a truly balanced budget going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno.
Yes. Yeah, this is going to be a hard budget year because of COVID-19. And I am, a mom. My husband's a state employee. So I'm well, and also I work at a library and a teacher. So I'm well versed in never having any money to variable spend. As for IDEM, definitely I would speak up. I want to try to maintain their funding as much as possible through this pandemic, because, back in February, a gas tanker rolled over and exploded near us, and us on the east side depended on IDEM to help clean it up. And, when there's a gas tanker that basically explodes near your house and goes into the river, I mean, that can be really much a life and death situation. people don't look at, the environment and everything and IDEM having, consequences of life or death, but yes, it can. And so I will do everything in my power to make sure that their funding levels, stay throughout the COVID-19.
Thank you. You have the next question on healthcare.
Yes.
As the number of jail inmates with untreated mental illness continue to rise, what are your views on potentially restructuring funds for public safety to include more for mental health as opposed to more for policing?
Yes. And I've thought this way for years, and this summer has really just brought it especially to light. We kind of ask a lot of our criminal justice system and our police officers. We expect them to be, police officers, enforce the law, but we also expect them to be like social workers and addiction specialists and everything like that. I really think at the end of the day, we need to invest more in mental health and more in addiction treatment, and not just send, people, a lot of people who are in jail have mental health problems, and they probably wouldn't be in jail if, their mental health was treated. So I'm definitely in favor of that, diverting some funds from the police. I mean, I love the police, but, this would help lighten their load. And again, they're not trained to be mental health experts. They can't do everything. We can't expect them to do everything. We need to have other people helping them, maintain law and order.
Thank you. Senator Kreider?
Well, the answer is not diverting money from law enforcement. The answer is having an honest discussion about what the state's obligations are around the topic of mental illness. Last session, I created the Behavioral Health Commission, which is a 26-member commission that is tasked with looking at these issues really on a holistic level. What are the funding streams and how are they flowing? What's the access challenges that we have? Are we accurately funding programs like the Clubhouse that you mentioned earlier? Are we working for the programs that make the most sense and where we get a magnified positive benefit? Most of the sheriffs that I'm friends with will tell you that the saddest thing for them is about 40% of their population in their jails are folks that have addiction issues or mental health issues, or probably both. And if we can figure out how to fund things like Recovery Works, which is a program that helps folks transition out of jail and puts them in a supportive environment, something I fought for an additional $10 million for in our last budget, then we'll start to get ahead of this. But this commission, I think, will give us the real data that we need.
Thank you, Senator Kreider. The next question is on women's health. Senator Kreider, a survey by the Family and Social Services Administration recently found that many people on public assistance experience food insecurity, especially women. How would you address hunger legislatively?
So one of the things that I got funded as soon as I got elected was a program that I started, kind of a unique way to look at the food bank system. I created a program at DNR called the Sportsman Benevolent Fund that allows hunters to donate part of their game to the food bank system. That effort really got me thinking about and focused on the challenge of food insecurity. And we've had a lot of talk about food deserts. Certainly there are areas within Marion County where we have food deserts. We have to continue to focus on those challenges. Legislatively, it's a funding challenge, though. We need to continue to fund the programs that, like Feeding Indiana's Hungry, and the programs that really we know we get a good bang for the buck. We've got to continue to focus on this challenge because it is a major challenge.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno.
Yeah, we need to continue to fund our SNAP and, TANF. I've gone to the State House many times, and I've seen, a lot of advocates out waiting for the legislators, and they, they were telling me that, certain SNAP benefits and TANF benefits haven't been raised since the late 80s. And again, I realized, funding's always an issue. Money doesn't, grow on trees. Don't we all wish? Um, but yeah, we need to seek more funding for those. And I'm very, big fan of, like IPS, Warren Township Schools. They're now getting, grants from the federal government to not only have lunches, but free lunches for all the students, but free breakfasts as well. We also need to approach the whole food desert situation. I know there's several really good philanthropists that are starting to, we can work with that are addressing that issue as well.
Thank you. You'll get the next question on education. Indiana is ranked last in the nation for teachers' pay by the American Federation of Teachers. Indiana has a shortage of qualified teachers, especially in more rural areas of the state, such as Eastern Hancock County. What measures will you support in order to retain teachers and enhance our education system?
Well, thank you for that question. So for the last 2 years, we have spent over 133 million on high stakes testing like ISTEP. And I think I'm not a big fan of high stakes testing anyways, because I believe it's just teachers are forced to teach to a test. But especially now during COVID-19, and there's a whole bunch of other stresses going on, we should not be engaged in high stakes testing. And I even think just if we reinvested even half of that money towards teacher pay, it would go a long way. And we wouldn't have to finagle the other parts of the budget. So that would be, that's part of my platform, just ending high stakes testing and diverting some of that money towards teacher pay and making classroom sizes smaller.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kreider?
Obviously, teachers need to be paid better than they are. Currently in our state budget, we expend just over 50% of our budget to K-12 education. The question becomes, how's that money spent? And it's bargained for, it's going for all the other expenses that a school system has that continue to go up, everything from custodial staff to school bus drivers and all the challenges that COVID has put on this system certainly creates more awareness around that issue. I will look for every opportunity that we have as we discuss the budget to try to figure out a way that we can do this effectively. However, you have to be honest in that we could give each school system $1 million and not, for instance, guarantee that that gets to teachers. There are teacher appreciation grants that are kind of a stipend, a bonus, if you would say. And we will continue to look for opportunities to do that. But when you have this current system that we have, it's really hard for legislators to say, this is what you're going to get.
And you have the next question on economic development. The Riverfront Development District incentives have led several communities to apply for funding based upon districts that seem to be ditchfront rather than riverfront. Do you foresee any need to change the existing legislation to narrow the definition of what qualifies as riverfront?
Yes, I do, because we're seeing as small as a drainage ditch, which the rain that we just had would double the flow of water through that ditch on a given day. Really, we need to have an honest discussion as to how to properly allocate alcoholic beverage permits. And that's really what folks are seeking for their business. And so we can look at a system that makes sense, something that looks at perhaps new housing starts within a geographic area that kind of predetermines what the population growth might be in a given period of time. But really, it's time for an honest discussion as to how we're going to allocate those permits and quit playing these games that local units are playing.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno.
Okay, you were kind of cutting out while you were reading that. I'm so sorry. The question.
Yes, sure.
I apologize.
No problem. The Riverfront Development District incentives have led several communities to apply for funding based upon districts that seem to be ditch front rather than riverfront. Do you foresee any need to change the existing legislation to narrow the definition of what qualifies as riverfront? And I'm going to say really quickly here that we are brainstorms this evening, and we all talked prior to our recording. And what we'll do if all of a sudden the lights go out. But carry on. That's probably was the blip in hearing me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, who knows what's going on with my internet? Anyhow, yeah, so that sounds like that's an issue. I don't think because there's certain areas, obviously in Marion County, there's a street, Kenyon Street, right down the street from me. When it rains really hard, I mean, it might qualify, it sounds like, for a riverfront property because it just goes right down and the street and it looks like a river. So sounds like there needs to be more like stringent guidelines on what qualifies as a riverfront, definitely.
All right, you get the next question. The 2018 Kids Count Data Book found that nearly 20%, or 3,300 children plus, in Indiana live in poverty. Do you see this as a problem? And if so, how would you fix it?
Well, yes, of course it's a problem that children live in poverty. So I think we really need to focus on education, making sure that everyone has access to education. So if the children are growing up in poverty, they have hope, to get out of it, grow up, get a better job, make sure provide their parents resources so they can, vocational job training so that they can also, get a good paying job. Let's give people some boots and so they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Because, poverty affects everybody and especially, kids, and that's not acceptable. But there's a lot of avenues we can explore on that and get it done.
Thank you. Senator Kreider?
Well, certainly for the kids, they have no control over their parents' circumstance. So the very best thing we can do is focus on job training, the work that economic development does to try to increase that parent's ability to earn a higher wage. Certainly when they do that, we know that most families will benefit generationally, where the kids have a better opportunity than their parents had. And certainly, I think there's a lot of good work that is being done. Indiana, because of our tax climate and because of the other economic development tools that we've given to locals, is doing a really nice job of attracting businesses from, for instance, our neighbor in Illinois, which has much more challenging environment for businesses to expand. So we need to focus on the parents first.
Thank you. And Senator Kreider, you'll get the next question. In 2017, Indiana was one of the first states to phase out a solar incentive called net metering, which makes rooftop solar more affordable for homes, churches, and small businesses. Senator Kreider, you voted yes on Senate Bill 309. If you are elected to serve in the Senate again, would you support a bill to repeal Senate Bill 309? And Ms. would you support repeal of Senate Bill 309 to allow net metering? Senator Kreider.
So we didn't do away with net metering. What we did away with was a guaranteed high return on the energy that goes back into the grid after I think it was 25 years. I've been in conversations with folks in that business industry, and there's some desire not to totally repeal Senate Bill 309, but perhaps extend some of the guaranteed return above what would be the actual cost of the energy that returns into the grid. And so I think we need to continue to have discussions around that particular issue. I think, as you look at the challenges or new things coming on the environment, the use of total electric cars is going to change this discussion, and most families are not going to have excess energy to move back into the power grid. And so we just need to be on our toes and continue to watch what the business environment looks like.
Okay, Ms. Bruno.
Yeah, I remember that debate very well. I remember being at the State House for redistricting reform, and I'm in favor of net metering. I want to repeal Senate Bill 309. I think we need to do everything we can to encourage solar energy. COVID-19, I've read several articles that say that air pollution makes COVID-19 worse. People have worse symptoms. And so if the more people who use solar energy, the less coal we use, the cleaner air we have, we're less likely to be vulnerable to pandemics such as COVID-19. And then asthmatics like myself are less likely to be puffing on our inhaler during ozone action days. So I love solar. I will do everything in my power to encourage solar energy.
Okay, thank you. You get the next question. It's on healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
What concrete steps can be taken to further reduce deaths by opiate overdoses, which have increased during the pandemic?
Wow. Yes. So I just first want to acknowledge, like, this pandemic has just been hard on everybody. And I'm just, wow. Yes, and I'm here for y'all. So that's all I got to say for that. I've lended a lot of ears to people and they've lended a lot of ears to me. I think one of the things is we need to make sure that we do have strong mental health in our country, even before a pandemic. I think we really need to, again, focus on mental health, focus on, helping people through addictions. I'm also a fan of medical marijuana as well. It is less addictive than opioids, and it shows some promise in controlling pain. So I think there's multiple things that we could do. Again, we can make our mental health system here in Indiana even stronger. We can switch to, medical marijuana and see that. And also, have more substance abuse treatment centers as well.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kreider.
When someone's in crisis, they most often use the emergency room as their primary care provider. We lack that place, that address, that a public safety officer can take an individual that's in crisis currently. And very often when they attend the ER, they're given a card to go see a mental health counselor in 30 days or so. That does not serve the public. It does not use our state's resources wisely. And my work on behavioral health in the Behavioral Health Commission will hopefully give us the tools, the answers we need going forward to really address this problem. We need that address, and until we have it, the system does not work for the public we hope to help.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kreider, you have the next question. It is on women's health. Do you believe Indiana needs a surrogate law? There are no surrogacy laws in Indiana addressing a woman's right to receive compensation for her services, which means that contracts that include payment may not be enforceable in court.
So I'm really at a loss for that one. I think typically a contract is a contract, and a judge knows how to read the nuances of that contract and determine whether it's met or not. If we have the situation where people are entering into a contract and they're paying money and expecting a child at the end of that contract, and that's not happening, then we certainly do need a law that protects those individuals the same way we would protect any other business type encounter.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Senator Kreider. So yeah, if it's happening where a woman is, expecting to be paid for her services and she's not getting paid, then we need to do something about the law to make sure that happens. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you get the next question, which is on education. Indiana is in the bottom half when it comes to funding per pupil. spending less than the national average per pupil. Don't you think our students deserve better?
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. And we're going to, again, have some challenges this coming session because of COVID-19. When I first started running and putting together my platform, I had a lot grander plans, and we definitely deserve better. Some of the problem is I think we need to, we spend a lot of money on education, but I don't think we're necessarily getting all the bang for our buck. We are spending it a lot on, you know, private schools and charter schools and virtual schools, which, you know, school choice is fine and all, but we need to make sure that like charter schools, these virtual schools are held to the same accountability standards as, you know, our regular public schools are, and they're not, that's not happening. And I think that would bring, you know, if they were held to higher standards, then there would be more money available to help all the students.
Thank you, Senator Kreider.
So the Senate and the House have been really focused in the last several sessions on trying to get more of the dollar to the classroom. And there's currently a requirement that the schools report on whether they got 85% of their spend to the classrooms or not. That accountability will start to show results. It's a fairly new program, but getting more dollar to the classroom will of course have benefits to not just the student, but also to the teacher that is involved in that teaching of that class. And so we will continue to have discussions about this. It's going to be a focus. There's no way it can't be, with it being that percentage of spend in the state's budget. Over half of this discretionary money that comes to the state as far as tax dollars goes that way from the general fund. We'll continue to work with school administrators. I meet with all of the school superintendents in my district for a breakfast once a month, and we talk about all of these issues. I've been doing that for the last 8 years. It's hugely beneficial.
Okay, thank you. And you'll get the next question, which is a miscellaneous. Most states have now passed common sense cannabis laws. If a new governor is elected, are you prepared to work with the legislature to pass common sense cannabis decriminalization?
Well, I think it'll be like any other discussion we have. There will be a lot of opinions of both directions. I will tell you that I'm concerned about cannabis in that while people say it's not addicting or it doesn't create a dependency, it does, in fact. And for individuals who may have schizophrenia issues, it can cause reactions that are really dramatic. And so I think I'm interested in having a discussion around a pill form that can be approved by FDA. And since I'm not a fan of smoking anything, I would prefer that the folks of Indiana not use smoking as a method of ingesting any product.
Bruno.
Yeah, so I am very pro medical marijuana, and largely because, you know, I had a brain surgery and opioids aren't my cup of tea. Now, I've never used cannabis or any of that, but it certainly changed my perspective. It would have been nice to have something else besides Vicodin for my pain, because, you know, you have a headache for a good 6 months after you had brain surgery. I'm also for decriminalization. And I kind of want to just treat it like you treat alcohol. And you know, I don't know much about it. I mean, it can definitely, I'm sure, be addictive just like alcohol is. But, you know, we have a lot of people who are just in our criminal justice system on, you know, possession charges. They're clogging up the court. It costs money. So I think we could solve some problems, save money as a society. You know, some people can use it for pain relief in the medical marijuana form. Again, I'm not a fan of smoking either. I really hope that they come up with a pill form or like a patch or something. But yes, so I'm pro decriminalization and medical marijuana.
Thank you. And you get the next question on the environment.
Okay.
What, if any, additional legislation should be in place to preserve and protect the safety of drinking water?
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, we have, I am concerned about this, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but it's just the first thing that came to my mind. I've recently learned that Indiana doesn't really have any restrictions on concentrated animal feeding operations. And I mean, again, you get a lot of, pigs and chickens. And I mean, I have 12 chickens. Okay. And, they cause, smell, and, I have to, dispose of their poop properly because it could, contaminate, the groundwater. So I think there needs to be regulations in place to protect our groundwater from concentrated animal feeding operations, and just, common sense ones. Okay. Nothing over the top, just common sense, meet with the farmers, see, just see what we can do.
Thank you. Senator Crater.
Well, CAFOs are highly regulated, and this takes us back kind of to the IDEM discussion. If there aren't people out there watching what's occurring, it's pretty easy for people to get lax in their practices. And so, we need to adequately farm or fund IDEM, make sure that they have the resources available. And secondly, I've spent most of my life in a regulatory agency. Having good, sound regulations around any practice is just good sense. And we need to continue to support the regulatory agencies within the state that take care of us. If we become a country that has to use drinking water from bottles, can't turn on your tap and drink it anymore, we become a third world country very quickly.
Thank you. And you get the next question on healthcare. The budget for Indiana's community and home options to institutional care or choice for the elderly and disabled has been flat in recent years, while the waiting list of seniors needing services to stay home rather than a nursing home has grown. Especially with the COVID risks in nursing homes, do you support an increase in choice funding? Why?
Well, in particular, I support an increase in the pay for those individuals that are delivering home health care. And one of the challenges that we have is a lack of providers. And that's because anybody that's certified as a CMA or a nurse or some other provider can go anywhere in the healthcare system and make substantially more and have probably better work hours. And so we need to really focus on this issue, make sure that we're doing what we can. At the end of the day, the state is better served by keeping individuals at home as long as possible. And aside from the challenges that we've seen, most of our deaths statewide related to COVID have occurred in extended care nursing facilities. And so that's a challenge, but it's just better for the individual to stay at home, and we have to get more providers in this system.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno.
Absolutely. It's not only cheaper to keep people in their own home, but I think it's also better, mentally for the person. I think everyone can agree that we need to pay our home health aides more and our CNAs more. I mean, gosh, they have a thankless job. I mean, they work hard. They do a lot of heavy lifting. They have an absolutely thankless job. And so if you're like a home health aide or a certified nursing assistant, honestly, everybody in the healthcare industry, thank you for getting us through COVID-19. Just absolutely thank you. And yes, so I would definitely support increasing that funding. Not only will it save the state money, it will, increase peace of mind for, our elderly population. And yes, let's pay our home health aides more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You get the next question. What are the biggest obstacles for job seekers is a lack of access to transportation. What would you do to remove this barrier and improve public transportation between Greenfield and Indianapolis and other nearby communities?
Right. Yeah. So on the east side, a lot of low-income individuals rely on Indigo, and it isn't the best because currently, as it is, we are going to be on the blue line. I get my colors mixed up, which will be a lot more rapid. I would love to take the bus more, except downtown, except it takes like an hour, and I'm only like 5 miles from downtown because they have a lot more stops. I would, and we're going to need federal money for this. I would like a light rail system to be in place between like Greenfield and Indianapolis. This could be a pipe dream. I realize that. And we would have to work. I'm very good at working with all sorts of people. Maybe let's make this happen. Let's get a light rail that connects like Greenfield to Indianapolis, McCordsville to Indianapolis. Let's really invest in our public transportation. And the other thing is, you know, young people, millennials, zennials, they are very pro public transportation. And that will really, you know, keep young folks in our state that have lots of talent and things to share. So here.
Thank you. Senator Kreider?
So the thing that's going to change the transportation industry more than anything else is autonomous vehicles. And that's something that's on the horizon. I carried the autonomous vehicle bill through the Senate 2 sessions ago. We ended up getting caught in that mess at the end, and it died at the very end for lack of action in the House. However, I will tell you that folks with physical limitations, vision limitations, and others would much prefer having a ride-sharing program where they get on their phone and request a vehicle to be in their driveway in 10 minutes, and they get in the car and tell it to take them where they need to go, and it drops them off and then goes and picks up somebody else. When that system comes into play, and it's not that far down the road, believe it or not. I've been on a number of calls recently with my colleagues in other states, and there's great movement in that direction. So the discussion around increasing Indigo or increasing a light rail and things like that, to me, we need to really take serious look at that, whether those expenditures make sense given the environment that's coming at us. And it's coming at us, whether we like to think so or not.
Okay, thank you very much. And you can just start with the next question, which is on the environment. District 28 is rapidly losing many of its family farms to housing additions and business rezoning. What, if anything, would you propose the state offer in terms of legislation or incentives to support the agricultural business?
Well, it's become a situation, particularly on the west side of Hancock County, where farmers are being offered $50,000 plus per acre for their ground. And that's a business decision that's really difficult to turn down, that proposition, when you worked and you worked that land for most of your life. But we do need to try to figure out ways to appropriately manage urban sprawl and protect the family farmers to the extent possible. There are some business incentives we might look at as far as taxing structures to help keep them in the business. But certainly they're not unique. They're in the same mode as everybody else, and they're trying to figure out what the correct path is forward. And when somebody comes along and now offers you millions and millions of dollars for your farm, you're in a tough situation. They aren't making any more acres. And so what we have is what we've got, and farmers are doing an absolute terrific job doing more with less every year as things move forward. So we need to continue that discussion.
Thank you, Senator Kreider. Bruno.
Yeah, my cousins in Northeast Ohio, they used to own an orchard, and I have many fond memories. So first off, I want to thank all the farmers, okay? Without you, we wouldn't eat. That is a problem. I mean, some of like the zoning issues is very much a local issue. And I, would encourage, to work with your, local, your county officials on the zoning. Again, it is kind of hard to compete. You have farmers, they're getting less and less for their crops every year. And, someone is coming up to them and it's like, hey, I have $1 million. I mean, that's really hard to turn down. But yes, we need to find solutions because, again, we're not getting any more farmland and we need to eat. So we need to come up with solutions, whether they're tax incentives or, there are various organizations out there that, help would-be farmers purchase land and connect old farmers to new farmers. So there's a lot of stuff that we can just really just dive into and to try to help and save the farms, the family farms.
Thank you. You have the next question. What do you consider the biggest challenge for our state and how do you propose to address it?
I think currently right now, our biggest challenge is getting over COVID-19. I think, the governor's done a pretty good job. Dr. Box has done a pretty good job. Until we control the spread of COVID-19 and get over this, we cannot get back to business as usual. I think we just need to continue to, wear our masks, do social distancing. I would like to invest more into, rapid testing. We need to test more people. We need to have more robust contact tracing. If we do that, then, we can maybe, start going back to normal. And we also need to, again, support, small businesses during COVID-19. Use the CARES Act to help them stay afloat until we get, COVID-19 under control. And I sure as heck hope that we have a vaccine here soon, because everyone I know is tired of COVID-19, but we need to conquer this. It's the #1 issue here, and we need to get through this, and then we can focus on other things.
Thank you. Senator Kreider.
Well, I would agree with COVID-19 being our immediate challenge. It has impacted us top to bottom in a way I don't think anybody really anticipated. It has really kind of highlighted some of the challenges that we had even prior. And as I mentioned earlier, things like mental health, the folks that are in treatment currently, the requests for services are up about 30%. Suicides are up about 30%. And anybody that has a drug or alcohol problem, the recidivism rate is way too high. And so we need to continue to work on addressing the stresses around COVID-19, but also it's highlighted things like domestic violence issues, and it's put people in situations where the stress is way up and it's affected the quality of life at a level that is really hard to quantify. And so we'll continue to focus on that and work on that issue.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is yours on the environment. What, if any, additional legislation should the state put in place to protect Hoosiers from current and future fracking operations?
And so fracking is the situation that has created the natural gas boom and really has put us on a path to start decommissioning the coal-fired plants. But it is a concern, and particularly for folks that have worked in protecting our natural resources. And so we need to continue to have the discussion, work with the professionals at IDEM and at DNR and other agencies that have regulatory responsibilities around protecting of our natural resources and our water tables, to make sure that we are supporting the regulations that they feel like are appropriate for those business practices. It's something we absolutely need to pay attention to.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Bruno.
Yeah, so I don't know much about fracking. And so that is something that definitely an issue that I'm going to dive into probably right after this little convo here. Yeah, I am going to just, again, I think this goes back to IDEM and how they definitely need to be funded more. And I would definitely rely on their expertise. If they feel that there needs to be more regulations to protect us from fracking, you know, what is good and what isn't. I really I'm a very collaborative person, and I enjoy talking to other people and learning new things. So I would just collaborate with IDEM and other experts and see what they say.
Okay, thank you. This next question is yours. In 2019, Indiana spent nearly $300 million surplus, a $300 million surplus on college campus buildings that stand to serve a very small percentage of Hoosiers. In light of COVID and the economic contraction, do you believe that money should have been spent differently, and how so?
Well, they always say hindsight is 2020. I remember that legislation, and I actually remember thinking it was actually a good idea to spend money on that buildings, because I think they were retiring debt, or they were somehow refinancing it at a different rate. Anyhow, first off, you know, we didn't know that COVID-19 was coming. You know, we still had money in the bank. There was no way to foresee it. And again, if I remember the legislation correctly, the purpose was to save money. And now I'm going to have to go back and look that up, because I remember thinking, oh, that's actually a good idea and it's fiscally sound. It was going to end up saving the state money over time. So yes, I remember agreeing with it then, because it was going to save the state money over time. So yes.
Thank you. Senator Kreider?
I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee and was part of this discussion, and Ms. Bruno is right. It was intended to save the state money, not just the interest on the loans that would be made, but also the bonding costs that are associated with those loans. However, since then, we have given the universities the go-ahead to go ahead with those bonding projects instead of expending that money. And so we've kept that money. We do not, unless a project was already so far along that we couldn't pull back, we have not expended those dollars, and we've allowed those universities to go ahead and bond the projects. The good thing is the interest rates are so low right now, it doesn't have quite the impact that we thought it might have at the time we were having this discussion. So anytime you do budgeting, you're really trying to use a crystal ball and look a year or 2 years in advance. And it's a really difficult thing. We try to use good projections to determine how much money is coming in, but things like COVID have demonstrated that we need to be conservative as a state, and we have been. And our surplus, thank God we had it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Senator Kreider. Now we come to the last question of the evening. We had some really excellent questions. And the last question is, and Senator Kreider, you'll take it first. Other than the current crisis, what will be your top 3 priorities in the upcoming session of the state legislature? That's if you get reelected, and Ms. Bruno, should you get elected. Of the current crisis, other than the current crisis, what will be your top 3 priorities in the upcoming session of the state legislature? Senator Kreider.
And so the bills that I've already started into drafting, the first one deals with the issue of human trafficking. And I've been trying to escalate the penalties for an individual that would traffic an underage person to at least a level 4 felony. The issue is that too often the cases are pled down, and the individual who does the trafficking ends up with just a monetary fine, and there's no disincentive to participate in that work. I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be working on expanding the number of sexual assault nurse examiners. And I'm also going to be working a lot on a bill that tries to use anybody that's a master's level social worker as a pathway into a mental health diagnosis. Currently, only an MD can do that, or a psychiatrist. We need more providers in the mental health space. And until we get that situation at a better place, we're not going to be serving those individuals at a level I'd like to see them served. And so those are three of the things I'm going to be focused on. But as a member of appropriations, if I'm reelected, that will be the dominant issue.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno.
So the three issues I'll be focusing on, the first one is education and making sure that our teachers, we need to pay them more. 92% of all school districts before the COVID-19 crisis were reporting a teacher shortage, and it was due to either, high stakes testing and also, low teacher pay. I mean, it's simple economics. We're losing more teachers because they're just retiring because, they don't feel that they can teach in front of a class right now because, they're 65 and they're more vulnerable to COVID-19. So we need to figure out what a way we need to give teachers a raise. We also need to work on infrastructure as well, figure out better ways to fund it and get more funding. Whether it's out in Hancock County that's growing, leaps and bounds. They're going to need additional funding. We're East Side, we always need funding as well. I also want to focus on healthcare access and affordability, and just figure out just ways that we can make sure that everyone has access to affordable healthcare.
Thank you. We've come now to our closing comments. You both get 2 minutes. And because of the toss of the proverbial coin, Senator Kreiter, your close, please.
Thank you. Thank you to the League again for putting on the forum, and thank you to the people who are going to take the time to watch this small presentation, a sharing of our thoughts about issues. For the last 8 years, I've spent the majority of my time working on trying to provide more opportunities for justice, more pathways to a better life for vulnerable people in our state. It's been a real honor to have had successes and to have had conversations with individuals who had a better outcome than the last person because of work that I've done. That in some ways is addicting, and it's something that I want to continue to do. I'm proud of the work that I've done. I have carried some huge bills. This last session, the distracted driving bill in 2015, the infrastructure funding bill, which has really provided resources around the state, community crossings, as Ms. Bruno just mentioned, programs to provide more money for locals. My work has been recognized. I'm endorsed by the state FOP, the State Police Alliance, the Indiana Professional Firefighters, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce, the Indiana Chamber, the Indian Manufacturers Association, Farm Bureau, Marathon Petroleum PAC, the National Association of Social Workers PAC, Indiana Right to Life, NRA, and several others. Those groups don't get it wrong very often. That many people don't get it wrong very often. They have recognized the work and the dedication I bring to this position, and it's something I intend to do if I'm successful in this election for the foreseeable future. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts this evening.
Thank you, Senator Kreiter. Ms. Bruno.
And thank you, Betty. Thank you, League of Women Voters for Hancock County. This was just an absolute pleasure. I have, been out on the campaign trail, calling voters and doing no contact lid dropping, just trying, I have just absolutely fallen in love with everybody in this district. You all work so hard, and you deserve someone that works as hard as you do. I am a born collaborator. I am born bipartisan. As I mentioned before, I work with an all Republican board. I am in the super minority on my board, and I form coalitions and I get stuff done. So I have a wonderful board that I work with, and then I deal with the city of Indianapolis, and I work with the city county councilors. I move mountains, and there's a strip of road that's repaved, and that's a pretty big deal getting that done there in in Indianapolis, on the east side of Indianapolis and everything. And I'm a born collaborator. I'm a great listener. Lots of people have commented and they just have been absolutely just grateful that I've listened to them for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, well, no, that's kind of my job. And I'm on a job interview right now on the phone with you. And I need to, earn your vote, and, part of earning your vote is listening to you. And, I may not have all the answers, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to think big, and I'm going to get things done, because this district deserves so much. And this district deserves a champion, and I will be your champion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank the candidates again, Ms. Bruno, Senator Kreider, for joining us this evening. It's been our pleasure to provide these forums. We really embrace this opportunity. I'm a history professor, and this is the best we can bring of democracy, is particularly at the small community level. I'm so pleased to fill the rooms typically when we have these live, and I hope that we can fill your room, that this will reach you again. This could be seen, broadcast out through the newspaper, the Daily Reporter, through the library, and also on our League of Women Voters Hancock County Facebook page. I want to thank again the Daily Reporter for letting us be here in the newsroom. It was really exciting bringing this, and I want to thank the heavens for not opening up on us and not cutting off our electricity. Yes. I said, if you're using your laptop, then it'll go into battery mode until someone reminded me, if you lose electricity, we lose Wi-Fi. So I'm so thrilled we made it through. Thank you again, candidates, and thank you for my fellow League sisters. Thank you to Dave Hill, our editor, for the newsroom, and good night, Hancock County. There's Dave.
Bye.
Yes, thank you. Good evening.